Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway. Today I'm not really going to be talking much about trains, but I thought, hey, I might as well film this and see if anyone enjoys it. So I'll start off with a little story before I get on with showing you the stuff I'm going to be showing you. So basically I had an uncle. He wasn't actually technically an uncle, he was more of a family friend, but we saw quite a lot of him anyway, and he was a bit like me. He wasn't into trains or anything like that, but he was into amateur radio, and so he had a big workshop, a bit like mine really, but with a lot more stuff. With tools, components, I don't know, gadgets, all that kind of stuff, anything you can think of really. And anyway, last year, just before, well, for the second half of the year, he wasn't well, he had heart problems, and unfortunately just before Christmas he passed away, which obviously was hard on everybody. But since then his relatives have been going through all of his stuff, you know, sorting everything out, as you do when someone passes away, starting to sell his car, that kind of thing. And recently they set up, well, they arranged for some house clearance people to basically go in, and I don't know what they do, they probably just take all the stuff out and sell it, put it in boxes or whatever. And so before the house clearance people went, I was given the opportunity to go over there myself and take a look in his garage and in his workshop and see if there was anything that I could make use of. And I was told that if there was anything useful in there, I could take it and make use of it. So that's what I did. I went over and actually got quite a bit of stuff, a few bags full actually. And you know, it does feel a little bit wrong going through somebody's stuff that you know and just taking things, just thinking, you know, I'll have that. But I suppose it's better really than house clearance people getting hold of it and just selling it. So at least, you know, I'm keeping it and I'm going to be making use of it. It is kind of bittersweet, but I hope you're going to enjoy what I've got to show you anyway, and I'm quite excited by some of it. So yeah, hope you're going to enjoy it. I'm going to show you some stuff and see what you make of it. I don't think any of it has anything in particular to do with trains, but you know, they're tools and things, so if you like DIY and you like power supplies and that sort of thing, hopefully this will be vaguely interesting for you. If you're not interested, that's fine, you go and watch something else, but if you are, stick around and I'll show you it. Alright, here we go. Alright, so here's the first lot of some of the stuff. Probably one of the more interesting things I picked up was this, and I've always wanted one of these. It's a tiny little, I think, 12 volt drill. Now, there is a label on it here, but it doesn't have any voltage or current requirements on it or anything like that, so I'm just going to assume it's a 12 volt one. I have had it going actually on a train controller, my bench train controller, and it does seem to work on 12 volts. But also what I managed to pick up were these power supplies, which I haven't tested yet. I have checked that the sort of metalwork is earthed and that sort of thing, and it is, so that's cool. But there's a couple of them here. This particular one is, well, the dial goes up to 50, but I don't really know what voltage it really goes up to. There's this dial, quite a makeshift looking dial, which says current limit over it, and it goes from, seems 0 to 6. So if that's amps, that's quite handy if it can do up to 6 amps, although I don't know. Then of course we've got a voltage dial here. This one is probably nicer cosmetically. It doesn't go up quite as high. Well, the dial on this only goes up to 30 volts, which means if that's anything to go on, it's not got quite the voltage range. Not entirely sure what this is. It's got a dial that goes 100, 200 and 300, so I don't know whether that's milliamps. Not too sure what that is, but we'll power it up and see what that does. Does that move? Yeah, that moves. It's just sort of 3 settings, which is fair enough. And it's fused as well. Yeah, there's a fuse on there. He was a bit of a bodger, that's one thing to say, and you can see there's sort of like some sort of gauge just tacked onto the front here, which doesn't look original to the power supply, but we'll see what that does. But anyway, I thought what I'd do is test these out now on camera. I'll hook this drill up to it and see if we can get it to work on there. Now obviously the crocodile clips that come on these power supplies are a little bit old. They seem to have a bit of an overbite to them. So what I probably will do is take off these wires completely. Oh, okay, they just plug in like that. So what I might do is make up my own leads which have finer crocodile clips on them, and hopefully then that will be more appropriate to use with the sort of stuff I use. But you know, for the time being it's going to be absolutely fine. So I'm going to turn the voltage down. I'm just going to makeshift attach to this drill, which has got like a headphone jack on the end of it, inexplicably. So there it is. That's the drill. Switch it on. Increase the voltage a bit, see what we get. I might need to increase the current limit first of all, and I certainly don't want to be putting 20 volts through it. In fact, that's an interesting point. Let me just disconnect this, see what kind of voltage we get. So on maximum voltage we're looking about 45 volts, which is a really nice range, and minimum seems to be around 10, around that ballpark, so that's quite nice. So I'll leave it at 12. Oh, yeah, we got power that time. So again, this is the current limiter, I think. So if I just allow a tiny bit of current to go through there, lets the thing turn. Okay, so I'll leave it on full. Let's turn the voltage up to about 12. Assuming this is an accurate display. And then you can control the current, which is quite nice. Again, I don't know what kind of current this thing's really capable of. That cuts it out there. It'd be interesting to find out. But it seems to be able to power the drill at least, which is one thing. And I assume it wouldn't have a problem, powering the loco. If I switch this to amps, what do we get? Well, it says 10. It can't be 10 amps. I hope it's not 10 amps. So I'm not sure. Seems to speed up a touch when I put it onto volts. Anyway, right, let's try out the other one then. I'm just going to unplug it, plug in this other one, see if that one does anything. Right, let's see if this one does anything interesting then. And as I say, I've not. Oh, it's switched on already. It looks like. Is that the power switch? Yeah, that's a power switch. Okay, let me make sure it's at a safe voltage. Set it to about 12 volts. In fact, I can switch it off, can't I, while I'm messing around with it. Not that I'm going to get a shock with 12 volts, of course. All these crocodiles are a little bit smaller. I'm not sure if they're going to go on right. In fact, what I could probably do is if I pull those out, put these bigger ones in. If they'll go in, we can figure out whether or not. No, I don't think they will go in. I was going to say then we could find out whether these leads are faulty or not. But okay, I'll have to make do with these then. Let's put these back in. Even if I just have to hold the connection on, it'll be alright. Can I get it to stay? Nearly. Will the black one stay? Yes, it will. Okay. So let's see. Let's turn the voltage down and then we'll increase it. Ah, got it. Okay, so if I put it up to about 12 volts, that sounds about right, doesn't it? That doesn't sound like it's going, too quick. And let's see if this other dial makes a difference. Yeah, so that sounds like it is a current limit. And in fact that one seems to be off. The voltage has dropped there, so the 100 setting seems to switch it off. The voltage drops. Does the voltage drop if I unplug it? Ah, right, so it's just a very low current then, and obviously this load causes the voltage to drop. At 100 we get, yeah, pretty much full voltage. It climbs up. So yeah, that is current limiting. Alright, interesting. Right, so that's the power supplies. I did pick up another power supply as well if you want me to show it to you. Okay, so yeah, this is a power supply and a half for you. It's an absolute monster. It weighs a heck of a lot. Whoa, it weighs an awful lot. Seriously, I would say it's got to weigh 5 kilos at least. Yeah, I reckon so. Anyway, this one says 13 volt, 25 amps. It's not variable as far as I can tell, but 25 amps is a ridiculous amount of current. So I assume this is designed to run some sort of radio equipment. But luckily it does have these headphone jacky style things installed, so I can just plug this drill straight in, and hopefully 13 volts won't be too much for it if I switch it on. Oop, does sound a bit much actually. Yeah, it doesn't sound happy at that, does it? But yeah, it works. I would love to know what it can really do, what kind of current this thing can do. I'm not really sure how to test it going up to 25 amps, because obviously if you just short it, I think it's got some kind of protection in there, which means it won't put out 25 amps when you short it. But I don't know, I'm not sure how to do that. I haven't got a ballast or anything like that. I suppose I could get one of those power resistors and see if we can pass 25 amps through it, but I doubt it. But anyway, what I thought I'd do is I would try and do some current load tests with the other power supplies, which have got the dials on them, so I can limit the current, and we'll see what they really are capable of putting out. So yeah, let's try it. Okay, so I've got amps showing up on the multimeter. At the moment, I'm going to trust the little what's it called, the voltmeter on there. Although I will test that at some point, probably off camera, just to figure out whether it is accurate or not. But I suppose there's not much point measuring the voltage anyway, because it's going to drop, isn't it? And it is basically short-circuited here, so we're going to see exactly how much current it can do. If you've got an expensive power supply, probably don't do this. Obviously, this one didn't cost me anything, so I'm happy to be you know, a little bit careless with it, but I'm trusting the fact that it is old and beefy and it will take this for a short brief period. So let's switch it on, and if you guys are going to be able to see this better than I can, but at the lowest voltage there we're getting 0.1 amps, which is a good start. And if I increase the voltage, I don't know what's going to happen. See if we can get it to sit at 10 volts. No, it's not doing that, but it is maintaining that 0.14 amps. Okay, let me knock down the current limit then to the minimum. That's going at 0.08. So we can knock the voltage up. Nope, not really. So it's not doing a great deal under short circuit, but as I say, I assume it's got some kind of protection. So what I might do is get one of those power resistors, and we'll see if I can cause it to put out some serious power through that. Right, well, I did have some massive 10 ohm resistors which were about this big, but I can't seem to find those. But what I did find, well, I found loads of components at his place, by the way. But I'm going to try and find a decent one in here. I believe these are power resistors. So that's a 4 watt 10 ohm. That's a 4 watt 220 ohm. That's no good. 11 watt 47 ohm. Ah, now we're talking. 11 watt is pretty good. 40 odd ohm is probably a bit much. What's this one? 15 ohm 11 watt. I like the sound of that. These are 4.7 ohm 11 watt. Might be a bit low. Yeah, okay. I think the resistance on that one is a bit low. That's going to be pretty close to a short, isn't it, at this kind of voltage? Well, no, it's not really, is it? But let's try this one. So that's a 15R 11 watt, if this labels anything to go on. So let's try that. I don't know what it's going to do. It might explode. But I'm game for that, if you guys are. Right. Stand way back. Right. So, what have I done here? Oh, I can connect that. And actually, if it's going to put out any serious power, which I don't think it will, the thickness of these wires might be a bit of a problem, but I'm not bothered. I've ordered a whole load of new crocodile leads. Well, not leads. Don't buy crocodile leads, just buy the connectors and solder your own leads on. It'll be more reliable, shall we say. Alright, let's see if this thing's going to start getting warm then. Let me switch the voltage down. Let me limit the current. Right. 0.06 amps. Let's increase the limit. We got 0.26 amps at just below 10 volts. Increase the voltage. Now we're getting a bit more juice out of it. 0.5 amps there. At what's that? Perhaps 18 volts. 0.6 amps. Is this thing getting warm? Oh, very slightly. 1 amp, 1.1 amp. So it's 1 amp. It's limited to 1 amp. And it's putting out about 30 volts, which is nice. Pretty nice. So it's a 1 amp power supply. I think that's pretty much a given. And it holds that 1 amp as well. Well, not at that lower voltage, but at maximum voltage, it does hold that current, pretty much. So, I wonder why it's inefficient at lower voltages. Interesting though. It's really not putting out much at 12 volts, which is my sweet spot. At 12 volts, it's only giving out 0.3 amps. Try another one of these resistors though. Whoa, that thing's hot. I'm going to switch this thing off. See what else we've got. Let's try a higher value one. See if we can't get it to push a bit more current through it. Assuming it is just limited to 1 amp, this one ought to be safe to put on. So this one is one of the, which one is this? This one's one of the 4.7 ohm 11 watt resistors. Let's check we're recording this. So let's figure out what kind of output this one's got. Let's turn the current down a little bit. Let's check how that current limit works. So let's switch it up to the maximum voltage. And we're now looking at 0.076 amps. If I put this to 2, that gives us 0.09, so I don't really know what unit this is. I assume this is 0.6 amps, but that's only giving us 0.1. And at 1 amp, it's only giving us 0.1, so I reckon it's got that short circuit protection. So presumably that's a little bit too low. That value, a bit too low. It must be considering that a short. Let's put 2 of them in series, see if we can get closer to 10 ohms. Hopefully that will be a decent connection. We'll know if it's not, because we won't get any current. So I'm now looking at 2 of them in series. Voltage is still low. Yep, it's still only putting out 0.3 amps there at about 5 volts. So that is still killing it. So yeah, not mightily powerful. But let's try the other one then and see what that one can put out for us. Okay, so this one's smaller and lighter. I'm not sure what this one's really capable of doing, but let's find out. So let's switch it on. I've still got the approximately 10 ohm load on it. It's putting out 0.035 amps there. Turn the voltage up. Yeah, it's sticking to that 0.1 amps, which makes sense. That's what the limit is. Switch it up. That gives us exactly 0.2 amps, so 200 milliamps, I suppose. This one then, let's guess, it's going to be 3.26. Yep, so that can manage it. So that is, it's a 0.3 amp device. Just about okay for testing trains, although putting out 0.3 amps means it is quite low on the voltage. Blimey, it's not got a lot of power behind it, has it? Let's try that high power one though and see if we can get a little bit more power going through it. Okay, this is the one that gets hot. This is the one that gets hot. Right, let's switch that voltage back down, switch it back on. Alright, so straight out there, it's on its 300 milliamp limit. Push the voltage up. Yeah, it is still stuck at 0.3 amps. So that's quite handy actually, very nice actually that, because it's not going to allow my locos to pull more than they need, except I don't know how that's going to run on what looks like 5 volts. I don't know how much use 5 volts is going to be, but let's find out. Shall I put a loco on it? Final test? Yeah, let's give it a shot. Okay, I put one of my locos across there then. Still got the ammeter hooked up. Don't know if you could see it from that angle though, thinking about it. Okay, bit of juice. No volts right now obviously, so it's not going to go anywhere. I've set it to the 300 milliamp. And yes, that is enough. If I set it to there, that gives us 12 volts, which is about maximum speed, although of course you don't really want to be putting them at 12 volts. But yes, it's got enough power to turn him there. If I set it to a medium voltage, we could probably increase the current a bit. It's only at 0.06 amps right now, which is very low. Put a bit of a load on it, knocks up to about 2.2 amps, which is about what you'd expect. And this would be interesting. So I've knocked it down now so that it's got a real current limiting on it. It's got 0.1 amp current limiting. If I put some load on it now, it should really struggle. Yeah, as you can see, it's got no power behind it. So that's interesting. And yes, it goes straight up to 0.1 amps. Switch it up again. So now it should have a bit more power. Yep, a little bit more. And then give it its slightly higher. Yeah, pushes past my finger. Very interesting that. Anyway, let's move on from the power supplies. I've done this to death now, haven't I? Okay, so here's a nice box. People like me tend to use a lot of wire, and I seem to always run out of it, but I found a lot of wire over there. And this isn't, I bet this is a quarter of what I found. But a lot of it is this quite dusty actually. Ooh. so I'm not going to put that out on the carpet. But lots of this very thin, very flexible wire, which is fantastic. Quite a lot of that in different colours. I'll just put that to one side. I managed to get loads of that, as you can see. There's some of this, I think this is speaker wire or something like that, but again, that's great for 12 volt applications. They'll pass a couple of amps at 12 volts. I found loads of solder there. Some of this actually isn't solder, but I grabbed it anyway. Like that, for example, I don't think it's solder, I think that's thick wire. But there was basically a lifetime supply of solder there, which I managed to pick up. There's this. Oh, in fact, no, I got this for Christmas. I've just banged this in the box anyway. That's some multi-core wire. And then there's some thicker stuff as well. That looks quite beefy, that does. Big reel of that stuff. So again, for higher current applications, it would have been good for those floodlights I put up actually. But yeah, I bet that will take a good few amps at 12 volts. More of that wire. This is the big lead that actually came with that monstrous 25 amp power supply. And again, you can see big thick wires on that. So if I do find a high current application for that, I will certainly get that out. There's also some mains cable in there. Can grab a bit of it, that kind of thickness, so that's just your basic mains cable. And I also found quite a lot of caps there. These are some monster caps. What kind of values are we talking here? My dream is, right, to build a monster power supply which can zap things, but these particular caps aren't going to be good for that because they're only 35 volts. But 4,700 microfarad, 35 volt caps, they would be very nice for lighting, I suppose. You could really charge up your LED lights and run them for some time on that. So quite good for a stay alive in a diesel, I suppose. Not much good for anything smaller than that. But yeah, quite handy. Got loads of those. And I thought I might as well show you some, what's these? Oh, 5 tubes. Yeah, that's for those. So I thought I'd show you some of that wire, just because I like wire, for whatever reason. And I'll show you very quickly some of the components and things I picked up, although yeah, we're starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel now. Okay, I've just grabbed 4 of these boxes at random, and actually these boxes are mine. I got them for my birthday in a big storage unit, but I've had a brief sort. I really need to go through and get them all these, for example, resistors separated into you know, like for like valued boxes, but that's for another day. But yeah, anyway, oops. In here then, let me switch this monitor on. Yes, sorry. So in this one I've got some rectifiers. I think they're rectifiers. That one says 400 volts on it, which is interesting. 25 amps, so that's going to be good if I ever decide to build that monster power supply. Quite a few of those in here. This one's a 25 amp, 50 volt one, it says. So not quite as useful if you want to do stuff with the mains. This is another one. Yeah, you get the picture, man. Just they're big rectifiers, which will be nice to play with. And I wouldn't recommend playing with things like that, by the way, but you know, if you know what you're doing, you're okay. And I don't really, but I'm careful. This is switches, lots of switches. You've got some push to make switches there. Quite nice beefy ones. They don't look too cheap and nasty, those. In fact, they feel good quality. Don't know what the values are for those, but it doesn't matter too much. Regular switches. It's a switch. Not much to say. More of those. In fact, there's loads. Some of them feel better than others, but some of them look pretty new, like this one for example. Looks new to me. There's some of those latching switches. I think this is a latching one. Well, that might actually be a push to make, but there are some in here that latch. You've got some quite neat little push to make ones. Ooh, if I can hold on to the thing. It's one of those sort of little panel buttons, I suppose. I don't know what you'd really do with that. But yeah, quite interesting stuff. Again, more of those switches. So switches galore, really. I found these, and I'm really lucky with that because switches is always something I've not got much of. I'm trying to see if I can see one of those latching ones. No, there are some in there that latch, but they just look like push to makes, so you've got to find them. But switches is good. I mean, I probably won't have to buy any switches now for a good little while, so that's good. This is the box I've showed already. It's got resistors in it and things, some all kinds of different values. I mean, you've seen resistors, I don't want to show you resistors really. 27 ohm resistors, quite a lot of obscure values. I bought a selection, but normally the sort of stuff I use is going to be close to 1k, so I bought stuff that's 1k and nearabouts for that. And the final thing of interest is this box, and I actually bought loads of this kind of stuff. They're bulbs. Now the bulbs themselves I won't use, but the wire that they're attached to is fantastic. It's really, really flexible, which means for locos and that kind of thing, this wire is fantastic. These days I use LEDs, so the bulbs themselves are not going to be useful, but there's a lot of wire in here, so if I just need a small length of wire and I don't want to go into the back and get a spool out, I can just snip the wire off that, and that's something I like to do. And hey, there are some LEDs in there too, so I guess if I need LEDs and I need a certain colour, and I don't have them, I suppose I could use a bulb instead. I suppose they're 12 volt bulbs, aren't they? But yeah, I must have twice as many boxes of this full of components. It's mostly resistors, but I did pick up some diodes and things as well, so really quite lucky actually. And I won't be buying solder or wire or resistors or diodes for quite a long time. One last thing before I go, I forgot to show you some more of the other interesting stuff. First of all, you're not going to see this very well, but this is a relay. It's a 30 volt 10 amp relay, something like that. Is it 30 volt? I thought they were 5 volt on the bag. Anyway, they're not in the bag anymore. But I'm actually building a model ghost train, and if that seems to work in the end, I'll do some videos on that. But these relays are going to be good for making flashing lights or turning motors on and off and things, so that's handy. Quite nice. Also, there's this. I found this little screwdriver set, and I've actually thrown away the attachments that have just regular screwdriver ends on them. But what I did find is that some of them, let's see if I can find one, have got the star attachments. Are they called stars? No, they're sort of like hexagon shaped ones. They're not nut spinners. There was some nut spinners with this, but I threw those away because I've got a set of nut spinners. But yeah, they're these sort of hex screws, I think that's what you call them. And they're quite useful. I've not got actually anything to undo hex screws. So yeah, that's handy. And also, look at these. So these are sort of like turning dials. And if you look at this, you watch this red thing, it'll go across there as I turn it. Now presumably this is designed for a radio or something, and I don't know what that would attach to, but it would attach to something inside a radio, and you turn that knob and it changes the volume or changes something like that. Presumably it changes frequencies and things, that sort of thing. It's for amateur radios anyway, but I thought you never know when something like that's going to come in handy. It's got a bit of like a, don't know what you'd call it. It's got a name. It's like a spiral anyway, and this thing rides along it. There's quite a few of those. I don't really know what I can do with them, but if anyone's got an idea, let me know. It might even be a potentiometer, you know, because it has got contacts on the bottom. Can you see this? Am I in focus? Is this a potentiometer? I doubt it. But there may just be some kind of rail inside there that this slides along. I'll find out at some point. I'll put some, well, I'll put it across my resistor measurer thingy and find out if the resistance changes. But if it does, that might actually be handy. Anyway, but yeah, that's just some of the stuff I picked up. Hope you enjoyed that. The power supplies are looking promising. I'm going to do some more checks on them and figure out really what they're capable of, and make sure that they are going to be useful and suitable for using on my locomotives, although they turn James's wheels quite nice. So the power supplies are the big thing. Quite happy with that little 12 volt drill. That'll be handy, saving me getting the Dremel out all the time. I could put one of the wire brushes on there. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. The thing is, I've put everything away that I got, but there's all sorts of bits and bobs, and if I think of any more, I'll show them to you in videos and things as I go. But yeah, hope you enjoyed that. As I say, bit of a bittersweet thing to be talking about, but he'd be chuffed if I was showing some of his stuff on the internet. And there was loads more. There was beautiful tools and sort of sanding machines and saws, massive things, massive bits of equipment, all of which I could have taken, but I'm quite limited to space up here, so I've just you know, gone with the little things. The power supplies I will use, but I'm having to limit myself on that. And obviously I don't want to strip the place, because that's not in very good taste, is it? But anyway, hope you enjoyed that, folks, and I will see you Wednesday for some more regular videos. Cheers, everybody.